Morning, Chairman. We're live now.
Thank you. Good morning and welcome to the online meeting of the Environment and Economy Scrutiny Committee. My name is Councillor Wendy Bokett and I'm the Chairman of the committee. This is a formal public meeting and the audio feed of this meeting is being broadcast via the County Council's website. I'd like to welcome the members of the press and public who are listening to this online. Before we begin, I'd like to confirm who is present. Nicholas Harrison, Democratic Service Officer, will ask members to indicate their presence after their name is called. When invited to speak, you should unmute your microphone and switch on your video. When you are not participating in the meeting, please make sure you have muted your microphone and switched off your video. Nick, can we invite members now to indicate their attendance, please?
Thank you, Chairman. Councillor Mrs. Austin.
Present.
Councillor Mrs. Bokett.
Present.
Councillor Bridges. Councillor Bridges. No. Councillor Cullen.
Present.
Thank you. Councillor Griggs. Councillor Griggs. Councillor Higgs.
Present.
Councillor Oxby.
Present.
Councillor Matthews.
Present.
Councillor Dr. Thompson.
Present.
Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Nick. I'd like to ask members of the committee and other participants to speak to the chat when you wish to ask a question or make a contribution, and requests to speak will be collated by my Vice Chair, Councillor Ron Oxby. We have a very heavy agenda today, so can you please keep your questions short and concise. Also, just a reminder, please turn off your camera and microphone when not participating in the meeting. Can I also ask that members who are attending the chat feature, officers do not need to do so. We will now move on to the formal agenda. So item 1, which is the apologies for absent or replacement members. Nick, do we have any apologies for today?
Yes, we've got 2 apologies, one from Councillor Mrs. Sneath and one from Councillor Spratt. We have no substitutes.
Thank you. Right, declarations of members interested. Does any member have any interest to declare today? So please can you put it in the chat function. A problem with sound, and somebody can contact Adrian. Right, so nothing in the chat. So right, so minutes of the previous meeting held on the 24th of November. Can we, which is a virtual meeting, and we need to record them as a correct record. Do I have a proposer and a seconder, please?
I can propose them, Madam Chairman. Ron here.
Thank you, Ron. Do we have a seconder, please?
Happy to second it, Madam Chairman. Andrew Higgs.
Thank you very much, Andrew. We will now vote on the minutes. You are voting on whether you agree that the minutes are correct record. Nick Harrison will call the name of each member present in alphabetical order, and you are asked to state for, against, or abstain. Over to Nick.
Thank you, Chairman. Councillor Austin.
For.
Councillor Bokett.
For.
Councillor Cullen.
For, but I wasn't at the meeting. Okay.
Okay, I'll
reading it. So yeah.
I'll mark you appropriately. Councillor Higgs.
For.
Councillor Oxby.
For.
Councillor Matthews.
For.
Councillor Dr. Thompson.
For, can I just say I've been advised that I need to reboot the computer, so I may have to leave the meeting and rejoin. Sorry about that.
Okay, thank you. That's unanimous, Chairman, of those present.
Thank you very much. Thank you, those that minutes are agreed. So we're now on to item 4, which are the announcements by the Chairman, Executive Councillors and Lead Officers. I don't have any announcements to make other than to wish everyone a happy new year, and hopefully 2021 will be a better year than 2020. But over to you, Councillor David. Do you have an announcement?
Yes, thank you very much, Chairman, and I share your wishes to everyone a happy new year, and let's all hope and pray that it is better than last year. At December's Environment and Economy Scrutiny Committee, you heard from me and from the Growth Hub team about the vast effort that is currently underway to support businesses across a whole range of sectors at this very unprecedented time. Since then, the Chancellor, Rishi Sunak, has announced a new series of grants totalling £4.6 billion for UK businesses in the retail, hospitality and leisure sectors to support and protect jobs during this third national lockdown. Businesses in these three sectors will be able to claim a one-off grant worth up to £9,000. There will also be a £594 million discretionary fund made available to support other impacted businesses, and in addition, a further £1.1 billion for local authorities and local restriction support grants, which are worth up to £3,000 a month. Obviously, these grants are going to be dispensed through the district council process, bearing in mind they are the collection agencies for business rates. The Growth Hub will continue to be a bedrock of support for our business community as we continue to support work with them in the here and now with grants and advice. Across the county, we continue to support our small business tenants, which total around 200. And these are in our business centres and industrial units. Our offer of a 3-month suspension of rent collection from April to June last year was designed to support their cash flow as the effect of the initial national lockdown and other restrictions came into force from March of 2020. All but a handful of tenants took up the offer, and many have said what a huge benefit and peace of mind it provided in those days and weeks of uncertainty. We have since put in place phased repayment plans over the remainder of this year to help and support them and to continue to reduce the pressure on cash flow. We remain ambitious for Lincolnshire's future and for the growth that we will see. As such, we are planning for the longer term across all sectors. I'm delighted that this committee will be leading the way with the agricultural sector as you continue to look at the future of farming through the scrutiny panel you are setting up. The Tourism Commission has now had 4 out of its scheduled 6 meetings and has covered investment, product development and the marketing so far. Its final report with recommendations will be produced in late February. One of the areas we are very keen to look at in more detail is the very mixed picture of digital business skills across the visitor economy. We're in the process of commissioning new research to understand how we might best support this sector. And for all of us, a year ago, it was unthinkable that we would be having meetings in this virtual way. So it is amazing what can be done using technology that's already out there. Similar proactive examples include the work we're doing with the LEP to identify key pipeline infrastructure projects that will also form part of the county's strategic infrastructure delivery plan. And we're also making robust plans for the bids that will go into the Levelling Up Fund. And finally, I am pleased to report that work continues to make strong progress on the South Lincolnshire Food Enterprise Zone northwest of Holbridge. Following the award in August of £6.4 million from the government's Getting Building Fund, which is focused on COVID-19 recovery, the council is moving at an unprecedented pace with the delivery of a cluster hub building on phase 1 of the scheme. This will provide a high-quality business and collaboration space for small and start-up businesses working in the agri-tech sector and related businesses in the food supply chain, and will be our flagship on the development. Further access roads to open up additional plots on phase 1 and the preparations for phase 2 in partnership with South Holland District Council are also underway and due for completion this winter. The University of Lincoln's National Food Centre of Excellence is on track for completion in February. We have appointed agents to promote the development and the launch of the new branding, South Lincolnshire Food Enterprise Zone, at the heart of the UK Food Valley. This will take place in early February. Thank you, Chairman. I'm happy to take any questions.
Thanks. Thank you, Councillor Davies. Are there any questions for Colin?
There doesn't appear to be anybody wishing to speak yet, Chairman. I've just noticed that Councillor Griggs has joined us. He's had some technical issues.
Thank you. That's all very exciting, Colin, and we look forward to seeing going forward in 2021. Thank you very much for your.
Thank you, Chairman.
I don't know if Councillor Cole's with us today. Has he joined us or not? Do you know, Colin?
Yeah, no, I'm here, Wendy.
Oh, you're there. Sorry, I didn't see you pop in. Do you have
I've
any
heard that said before. Yeah.
Do you have anything? Sorry, I missed that. Did you have anything to say?
No, nothing to say at the present time.
Thanks, Eddie. And then officers, do we have anything from Justin, David, or Vanessa?
Nothing from me. Thank you, Chairman.
Nothing to add at this point, Councillor Bowkett. No.
Thank you, David. Thank you. Right, so moving on then to item 5, which is our revenue and capital budget proposal for 2021-22. This item presents the budget proposals for 21-22 in relation to the Council's Environment and Economy Services. The report will be presented by Keith Noiland, Head of Finance Communities. The view of the committee will be reported to the exec when it considers the final budget proposals on the 2nd of February 2021. Just a reminder, if you'd like to input on this item, please type speak into the chat thread and we will take questions at the end of the report. And the actions that the committee are asking to be considered are to make comments on the budget proposals, which are to be considered by the exec. So over to you, Keith.
Good morning.
Thank you.
As already mentioned, the report presents budget proposals for the next financial year. On pages 13 and 14 of the pack, I provided some of the context in terms of the 2020 spending review and the provisional local government settlement. You'll be relieved to know I won't go into detail about that, but as expected, the spending review was pretty much a rollover of existing arrangements rather than a fundamental review, largely due to the pandemic. We're continuing to see further delay in the local government funding reforms. So again, we're presenting a budget proposal that is a single year due to the uncertainty in future years. The executive approved the budget proposals, of which this forms part, for further consultation at their meeting on the 5th of January. Those proposals include a proposed 1.99% increase in council tax. The proposed revenue budgets for each of the Environment and Economy Services are presented in Table A on page 15 of the pack. The table charts the movements from the current year's budgets in terms of cost pressures and savings. You'll see that these services are presenting cost pressures of 1.834 million. In waste management, there's a cost pressure of 1.1 million arising from the price increase on the mixed dry recycling contract, which was effective from July 2020, and a further cost pressure in waste of 454,000, which is the revenue implementation costs of separated paper and cardboard collections. In planning services, there's increased cost of legal service and reduced income levels, causing cost pressure of 280,000. In terms of savings, we're planning to make savings of 236,000 by reducing the level of contamination in mixed dry recycling. I think it's important to stress that during the current year, we've obviously seen a number of services, particularly waste management, significantly impacted by the coronavirus pandemic, and the resulting increase in costs has been funded by government grants. The proposals in the paper for budgets for next year, based on the assumption that any continuing impacts due to COVID will be similarly fully grant funded. Moving on to capital budgets, Table B on page 17 sets out the proposed capital programme. Apart from some rephasing of expenditure for existing projects, the only significant change in the current capital programme for these services is the addition of the separated paper and card recycling scheme. That has a budget of 1.206 million in 2021-22 and budgets totaling 4.171 million in future years, so a total budget of 5.377 million. In terms of timescales for the rest of the budget process, a consultation meeting with local business representatives is scheduled to take place on the 28th of January, The proposals are now on the council website with the opportunity for public comment. The executive will make its final budget proposals on the 2nd of February, and they will then be considered by full council on the 19th of February. Hopefully that's a fairly concise summary of the main points of the paper. So I'm happy to take questions.
Thank you, Keith. Do we have any questions, Ron?
I haven't seen any come up yet, Madam Chairman, but I'll obviously give them a minute.
Yeah, give them a minute. Would you like to ask anything, Ron? Make comments?
Not at the minute. No, I've gone through it, and I think we've discussed it as well at our group meetings. And of course, we have to put up costs because of the wage increase. We have to give people increase in the minimum wage, of course, haven't we?
I mean, it is good. The only comments I've got is good that obviously government is still giving us grants to help us along with this pandemic, because obviously it's been quite costly. Obviously the separated paper and card is always going to be an extra cost. But obviously the money that we're going to get back if we do separate it, I think it's a worthwhile exercise. So yeah, I mean, all in all, the paper, we have discussed it before, and it's as it is, isn't it? So still not got any questions. So
just one thing, Chairman, if I may. We'll have an extra cost regarding the cardboard and paper. Are we likely to have a financial benefit in the long term?
Yeah, I can take that if you'd like, Chairman.
Thanks, Eddie.
Yeah, the paper and card trial has been very successful, as you can see from the documents that you've seen it through other committees. We're now doing a rollout across the county in a phased approach, with Boston and North Kesterton being the first two collection authorities to take it on. And all I can say is at the moment is based on the returns we've been getting from the trial, this will be an income to the council over and above the cost of doing the scheme. So not only is it good for the environment by recycling more materials, because good clean paper and cardboard can be recycled many times, but it's also financially beneficial too.
Oh, good. Thanks for that, Eddie.
You're welcome.
And again, no further questions, Madam Chairman.
No, that's excellent news, Councillor Poll, definitely. So thank you, Keith. Right, the proposal is then that I move that we note the budget proposals and our comments are passed on to the exec for consideration on the 2nd of February. Can I ask if you are all in agreement? If anyone dissents, please indicate in the chat now. So there's no comments in the chat, so thank you, that is agreed. So moving on to item 6, which is the review of the Lincolnshire Minerals and Waste Local Plan. The item is for pre-decision scrutiny prior to consideration again by the exec on the 2nd of February 2021. The report will be presented by Adrian Winkley, Minerals and Waste Policy and Compliance Manager. An amended Appendix A to this report was sent out by email on Thursday afternoon. Policy number is in some of the headings in the previous appendix had retained formatting for auto numbering, which had caused some of the policy numbers to change. Just a reminder, if you'd like to input on this item, please type speak. The actions that the committee are going to be invited to comment on are considering the attached report and determine whether it supports the recommendations to the executive and agree any additional comments to be passed on to the exec. So over to you, Adrian.
Okay, thank you, Chairman. Hopefully you can hear me. I'm having a few audio problems this morning.
No, we can hear you loud and clear, thank you.
Right, okay. Just a bit of background. The Lincolnshire Minerals and Waste Local Plan is part of the statutory development plan for the county, which means basically all planning applications for mineral working and for waste development have to be determined in accordance with the plan unless material considerations indicate otherwise. Under government regulations, the plan has to be reviewed within 5 years from when it's first adopted to make sure it's still relevant and effective, which means basically that the review has to be completed by the 1st of June this year. We've actually undertaken a provisional review of the plan, and that's appended as the as the amended Appendix A. Basically, in the review, we've basically done three basic things. First of all, we've assessed all the policies in the plan against performance indicators, which are set out in the plan, which is a very crude way of measuring basically whether planning applications are being determined in accordance with the plan. The other thing we've done is, because the performance indicators are in some respects fairly crude, we've actually dug down a bit deeper to see whether we found any other issues with the implementation of the policies which aren't apparent through those policy performance indicators. And then finally, we've looked at what we call the drivers of change. These are things like changes in legislation and government policy, which may impact on the policies so that they're not in accordance with national requirements anymore. The findings of the review are actually summarised in paragraphs 1.5 to 1.15 of the report. But basically, the review concludes that 11 policies of the plan need to be updated, mainly either because they're not meeting the performance indicators or that other performance issues have been identified in the review. In theory, we could undertake a partial updating of the plan, but in practice, there'll be a lot of benefits really for fully reviewing all the policies of the plan, not least because there's a lot of interconnectivity between the policies. So if you review one policy, it can have a knock-on effect on the other policy. So the recommendation is that the policy is reviewed in full. The report actually seeks the executive's endorsement of the review document and a recommendation to the full county council to authorise the updating of the plan in full, and sets out a timetable for that work, which is appended as Appendix B to the report. The preparation of a new plan will include several stages. The plan will go through several stages of preparation, and that will include at least 3 periods of public consultation. That basically sort of concludes my introduction, and I'd sort of welcome any questions now from the committee on the report and its recommendations.
Thank you, Adrian. Very long report. It's very it makes interesting reading, but it is a very long report, and as you say, you can't really update one. It wouldn't be possible, would it? Do we have any questions for Councillor Oxby?
There's none come in, Chairman, but I have a query. I noticed that Nottingham is looking at their policy, and they've been extracting, or we've been extracting minerals and sending across to Nottingham. And I noticed that the report stated that they were having a look into their policy early this year. And I just wonder if we have any dates and what effect it could have if things go a bit year.
Yes, well, at the end of last year, they had an examination into their proposed minerals local plan, and we formally objected on behalf of Lincolnshire against their proposals for the amount of sand and gravel allocation that they were proposing to make. The big problem that we have is that one of our main sand and gravel producing areas is in the Lincolnshire Trent Valley, which is close to the Nottinghamshire border. Unfortunately, during the last recession, what we tended to find is that some mineral operators that had quarries on both sides of the county boundary, rather than operating 2 quarries at reduced rates, they mothballed sites in Nottinghamshire and stepped up production in Lincolnshire. Now, the problem with that is that Nottinghamshire are actually now basing future predictions of future demand on past sales. Well, their past sales have been suppressed by the fact that their quarries have been mothballed. And if we allow them to sort of lock that in, then it will mean they'll be producing far less sand and gravel into the future. And that could mean that Lincolnshire will have to make up that deficit. So we've really sort of flagged that up to the inspector as a big issue. And so has the minerals industry as well. There's quite a lot of opposition to that because the implication is that we could find ourselves having to have extra quarries in the future. And we've already got 3 major quarries in that area, so it probably wouldn't be well received from local communities to have to make even more production to meet up shortfalls in Nottinghamshire. Now, in terms of the, we are waiting for the inspector's report on that. We haven't actually got a date, but the inspector did say he would be releasing that early this year. So hopefully it could be any day now.
Thank you very much. 2 more speakers have come in, Chairman. We've got Councillor Alison Austin, followed by Councillor Mike Thompson.
Alison, first to you then.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, I will agree about the concern regarding Nottinghamshire, but that's obviously been dealt with. Thank you. It's waste that's the biggest concern to many people. I wonder still, how much landfill do we actually do, and where are the landfill sites that are still being used? And the other point that I wanted to raise was concern has been expressed to me about the fact that we don't have the map with the waste sites on at the moment. So I hope that will be something that comes in the future document, please. Thank you.
Right, okay. Well, as you probably appreciate, we are moving away from landfill sites, particularly since we've had the energy from waste plant. I mean, quite a few of them have actually been sort of mothballed now. But I don't have a list in front of me of which ones are still open. But obviously, as time goes by, we'll be relying far less on landfill. When we review the plan, as I say, it will go through several stages. So it will be open to consultation, and therefore we can, look at what the best way forward is on how we deal with waste moving into the future. Just to give you a general outline, the first stage of the plan will be what's known as an issues and options stage. It's a very sort of formative stage of the plan. So that will go out to public consultation, and that helps set the general direction of where we will then go with the future policies. The next stage will produce what's known as a preferred options, where we'll give the public an opportunity to give more detailed comments about any specific sites that might be allocated or any specific policies. And then we move on at the final stage to the deposit, the publication draft, which is the draft which the authority considers is acceptable to adopt, and that's what's actually submitted for examination. The document will actually include, our existing plan already includes a plan which shows all the sites of waste sites, because they are safeguarded sites, and that will continue on into the next plan.
Chairman, would you like me to
Yeah.
LCC currently sends about 5,000 tonnes or so to landfill, and that's materials that we can't dispose of by any other method. We don't operate any landfill sites ourselves at the moment, but there are several in private ownership that are still in operation and still take landfill materials from sources other than LCC.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Could I just add to that as well? That at the moment, the existing plan isn't really site specific on waste disposal. We've identified what we call areas where waste would generally be acceptable, which is basically on industrial and employment sites, which are allocated in the district council local plans. And one of the things we'll have to look at going forward when we update the plan is whether or not we take the same approach, or whether we go for a more criteria-based approach. In comparison to, say, sand and gravel, we've actually identified specific sites for future extraction. But we were able to do that because there was a lot of interest from the industry when we started the plan in the initial stages. where they actually submit details of sites that they wanted to have allocated. And therefore, we were able to look through all of those sites and decide which ones were the most suitable sites for allocation. Unfortunately, we didn't get that sort of interest from the waste industry, so we weren't able to go take a site-specific approach to the plan.
Mm-hmm.
There was only one site, I think, at the end, which was put forward and allocated. So instead, we had to go for much more general areas.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay, Chairman, there was one very quick bit I would like to add extra. I'm sitting very close to the Riverside Industrial Estate in Boston, and we have a large power station that is biomass, I think, gasification. It is sitting there like a Christmas tree every night. It has done for a year, but it has not been commissioned yet. What are they doing? Could you please investigate that, somebody? Thank you.
That's so Google can find it, Alison.
Pardon?
So that's so Google can find it.
Yes, Eddie. Point taken.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Thompson.
Thank you, Chairman. Sorry, the audio takes a little while to come. I note that W5 is not included in the revision. I've got currently two planning applications in my division for lagoon storage. One is classed as digestate by the applicant from anaerobic digestion, and the other is classed as abattoir wash water. The digestate presumably is a lot more organic than the wash water, but the digestate comes under the district council for planning, and the abattoir wash water comes under the county council for planning. These are dependent upon the applications or the applicant's view as to where to send it, rather than the end result, which is actually for the fertilizer to be used applied to land. Would it not be more consistent to look at this type of thing as a single entity and decide which authority should deal with the application? Thank you.
Okay, well, I can't comment on those specific cases because I'm not familiar with all the details of them. But I think that waste is always problematic in terms of its definition. I mean, basically, we have to go largely on what government guidance says in terms of which authority should be determining these applications and what basically case law indicates is the right approach. But certainly, we can look into these issues. In terms of the policy itself, W5, it isn't on the list of the ones that have been particularly identified as updating. But as I mentioned in my introduction, the idea is that we will review everything to allow basically public consultation on all the policies in the plan.
Thank you very much for that. I would add that I did receive a helpful reply to my inquiry, but it's just the inconsistency of it, and it seems that it is determined by the applicant as to which hat it falls under. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much.
No more speakers at the moment, Madam Chairman.
No more, right, okay then, thank you. So the recommendations to the executive are that the executive endorses the review of the Lincolnshire Minerals and Waste Local Plan and recommends to the full council that the whole Lincolnshire Minerals and Waste Local Plan is updated in accordance with the programme set out in the proposed Lincolnshire Minerals and Waste Development Scheme, Appendix B. And 2, that the executive authorises the head of planning services to make any minor amendments to the review of the Lincolnshire Minerals and Waste Local Plan, Appendix A, and the Lincolnshire Minerals and Waste Development Scheme, Appendix B, before they are considered by the full council, which may be necessary to allow them to be published on the County Council's website. So the proposal is that I move that we support the recommendations to the executive as set out on page 22 of the agenda and agree to pass on our comments to the executive. Do I have a seconder, please?
I'll second that, Madam Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Oxby. We will now vote. You are voting on whether you support the recommendation to the executive and agree to pass on the committee's comments. Nick Harrison will call the name of each member present in alphabetical order, and you're asked to state for, against, or abstain. Over to Nick.
Thank you, Chairman. Councillor Austin.
For.
Councillor Boquet.
For.
Councillor Cullen.
For.
Councillor Griggs.
For.
Councillor Higgs.
For.
Councillor Oxby.
For.
Councillor Matthews.
For.
Councillor Dr. Thompson.
For.
That's carried unanimously of those present, Chairman.
Thank you, Nick, and thank you, Adrian. It's a very good report. Thank you. So thank you. That is agreed. So moving on to item 7, which is our Lincolnshire County Council's Green Master Plan. The item is for pre-decision scrutiny prior to consideration again by the Executive on the 2nd of February 2021. The report will be presented by David Hickman, Head of Environment, through the online version of the Green Master Plan as part of his presentation. The committee considered the draft Green Master Plan at its last meeting on the 24th of November 2020. And just a reminder, if you would like to input on this item, please type speak into the chat thread, and we will take questions after David has presented his report. The actions that the committees are invited to consider are the attached report to determine whether it supports the recommendation to the exec and agree any additional comments to be passed on to the executive. So over to you, David.
Thank you very much, Chairman. As you've mentioned, and the committee has previously considered an earlier draft of the Green Master Plan, and the paper, the agenda pack for the meeting does include what we're loosely describing, I guess, as the paper copy. So at least you have there, in broad terms, a text of the Green Master Plan to refer to as well. As we mentioned last time, the Green Master Plan. The purpose of the Green Master Plan is to take forward the Council's commitment last year to become net carbon neutral by the year 2050 in line with national objectives, and in so doing to provide a framework for coordinating work across Council services to embed a sustainable, a greener approach to service delivery, but also to provide a coordinating framework so that we can support our partner organisations in doing so, and they can indeed work with us and support us in doing so. I don't propose to say too much more about the broad purpose of the Green Master Plan at this point. I think that's spelled out in the paper pack. What I would like to do, though, is ask Nick if he can share his screen and pull up the link to the development phase Green Master Plan on the website. Nick, is that possible, please?
I'll give it a go, David.
Excellent. What can possibly go wrong? While Nick's doing that, we are intending, as you'll recall, that this should be a fully web-enabled resource. So something that we can develop as we go along, something that isn't static, isn't fixed, and isn't a traditional paper-based local government strategy. At the moment, this isn't publicly available, so I'm just going to run members through thank you, Nick, how the Green Master Plan will look online and how it will work online. So you have a front page. It's formatted entirely in line with the council's corporate plan, as you'll see there, and then there are a number of subheadings. So Nick, if you could click on guiding principles, please. So this takes us into the core principles behind the Green Master Plan, so don't waste anything there, and a number of links to follow into different elements of reducing waste, waste minimisation, and activities that the council's undertaking to reduce waste in its operations and the way it works. So reducing business miles, for example, and those sorts of activities. And if you can scroll down a little, Nick, please, and then the next one, working with the wider opportunities. And again, this is where we'll include data around how we're working on the more strategic level across the authority, and how we're working to develop and seize new opportunities as they arise. So again, this is very much part of the living nature of the document. It will continue to develop and change throughout the life of the Green Master Plan. And then finally, Nick, if you could move us on from this section to the next of the three principles, which is taking responsibility and pride. And that again takes us through a number of key elements of this area, and really it takes us into a number of principles around how we take this agenda forward. So you'll see here, looking to leave the natural environment in a better condition than we found it. This key message here: we're custodians for the future. And then what's become a traditional saying, we do not inherit the earth from our ancestors, we borrow it from our children. And that really sort of embedding that kind of thinking in the way we think about taking forward the Green Master Plan as a whole. So Nick, if you can take us back to the title page, please. Thank you very much indeed. So just moving on to Green Master Plan actions. So this is where we'll sort of define the key areas in which we're working. You'll also find a paper version of this on page 199 in the paper pack. And this really outlines some of the key areas of work that we are currently undertaking and will be developing over the next couple of years to start really driving the agenda forward. Scroll down a little, Nick. This gives some examples of some of these. Yeah. So looking at the way schools work. Economies of scale in procurement, relatively small scale actions, but that all members of staff can contribute to. So reducing use of paper across the authority. In some respects, of course, the conditions we currently work in have actually supported some of those actions happening rather faster than might have been the case. So I know for one, I'm using a printer very much less often than I might have done in the traditional office environment. I think that's true of many others as well. So there are elements of the way in which we're working through the COVID situation that we can use to our advantage and to help drive some of these areas faster than we would ordinarily have done. So a number of different actions there, and these will continue to develop and expand as we go through the next 2 or 3 years, and as the Green Master Plan embeds. So Nick, if we can pop back to the front page again. Clearly navigation of this will be easier once it's fully web enabled. So if we can just pick up on the reducing carbon in Lincolnshire. And this links fully into the Carbon Management 3. And again, if you can click on the Carbon Management Plan link there, Nick. And that should take us to a blank page.
That's all right. It's a bit like my memory.
Yes. As I said, the website is still somewhat under construction, and obviously we will be improving. I think it is going there. It's just giving us the circle of doom, unfortunately. But many of us would have seen that many times over the last few months, I'm sure. That's a familiar and welcome friend. But as you'd expect, within the Green Master Plan, there are links to some of the specific works that we are doing to reduce carbon, but set alongside a whole range of other works. There we are. So that is our current carbon management plan, easily accessible, but setting some of those some of those sort of core activities around reducing carbon in a much broader agenda of increasing sustainability. And
my God, that's an old picture.
I was going to say, who's that young fellow? But setting that alongside a much broader agenda in terms of the wider range of activities that we currently do and that we can develop actually as this becomes a broader, more broadly embedded within within the work of the county council. So that, I think, Chairman, gives a sense of the format of the plan, how it'll look. We are planning to launch the Green Master Plan fully as a publicly web-enabled document in the next few weeks. But hopefully that'll give you a sense of how it'll look and where we're going with the Green Master Plan as a web document. So I think I will probably leave it there. And before I invite questions from the committee, I would like to commend the hard work that the sustainability team have put into getting the plan to its current state. I think they are all listening to me and probably cringing and saying, why the hell doesn't he say this, or why doesn't he get that right? But I would like to extend my thanks, my heartfelt thanks to the team for really picking up this agenda and driving it very hard in a relatively short time. So well done, and thanks to the team. If I could now invite questions from members of the committee.
Thank you, David, and my congratulations to the team as well. That's it is a really good eye-catching paper. Other than that, it's got Spalding Town Centre on the front, but hey ho, could have had Skegness, but no, it didn't, or Wainfleet. No.
Yeah, well, we put Spalding because we want people to come.
We've got Councillor Mike Thompson, Chairman, wishing to speak.
Thank you very much, Chairman. It's an observation, really. I thought it was a great document, and it's nice that it's dynamic. It also contains a lot of practical information as to what the County Council is planning. And I think it is so much more effective to have this type of thing than declaring climate emergencies and things like that, and then not following it through. Really good document. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor.
Do you have any other speakers?
There's none at the moment, Madam Chairman.
Would Councillor Oxby like to say anything?
There's only one thing I thought about the other day is obviously there's a big drive for cars and small commercial vehicles going green, going electrified, etc. Of course, the biggest issue, of course, is these big 44-ton lorries that do anywhere from about 5 to about 7 miles to the gallon, and running these on batteries is going to be a bit of an issue. So I
think impossible is the word you're looking for
Sorry?
there. Impossible is the word you're looking for there.
Oh yes, I think you're right, Eddie. Yeah, and I think we may have to draw a line under these and say, well, look, this is going to be something we're going to have to live with for quite a long time, unless somebody comes up with a nuclear engine that's carbon-free, etc.
There are alternative fuels and methods of combusting those fuels available already. I mean, Scania have been running biomethane fuel trucks for many years. And it's modifying existing technology and using a different fuel that's less harmful. But there are ways and means. There's no single solution. There are lots of bits that together will make up the solution. So as long as we keep working towards that goal, we'll be fine.
Yeah, I did also notice, I did bring it up at a previous meeting, that a few years ago, some of the single decker city buses in Lincoln would have had a big gas tank on the top. They were running on gas, and they have disappeared.
I'm sure. I would imagine Vanessa can tell you something about those, because that's a trial we did locally with the local bus company, and they were running. I think it was it compressed natural gas? Was it, Vanessa?
Yes, if I may add to that, yes, it was a trial that we did with Stagecoach in Lincoln, and our big challenge really was actually about refuelling. So it was always intended to be a kind of pilot piece of work that we did with Department for Transport, and I think certainly something that we are actively engaged in discussions with, both with DFT and also with Midlands Connect, about that. What do we do with our larger vehicles piece? So Councillor Pole is absolutely right. It's probably a mixed kind of bag of solutions for us, and we really need to make sure that particularly our kind of rural county is really strongly represented in those discussions. So that's something we're very active with now, and that might well be around kind of connections to AD type world, but it may also be about hydrogen and other solutions too. So be assured we're very much part of those discussions.
Yeah. I think if I might add a further comment to that, one of the reasons we were keen to produce this sort of coordinating framework approach for the Green Master Plan was exactly that. But the elements that both Vanessa and Councillor Poll have picked up there, that with most elements of the sustainability agenda, you're going to be looking at a mixed economy of solutions and approaches rather than one single silver bullet. For a whole range of different areas, power generation, sustainable transport, many areas, we're going to need to look at a whole range of different technologies and different solutions, because not all parts of the county are the same. We're a large rural county with pockets of quite close urbanisation, so we're going to need to look at a broad range of different solutions over quite a broad time period.
You've muted, Ron.
Sorry, we've got a question from Councillor Mrs. Austin next.
Thank you. Councillor Austin.
Thank you, Chairman. Very quick question. Very good report. Thank you. You talk at bottom of page 190, 191 about examples in the community, and you talk about plastic-free communities. I have some information on that, please. Whether it's in this meeting or whether it's sent with a link, I don't mind. Thank you.
No problem at all, Councillor. There are some examples actually on the draft website at the moment. I'm more than happy to share those with you. And yeah, we do have some examples from a number of communities across the county. Very happy to share that information.
Thank you, David. I've got no more questions, but just my question is, what are we doing with the supermarkets still? Because still, I know they have moved over slightly, but not enough to my liking, away from the plastic. Are they using the recyclable plastic now, or are they still sticking tomatoes in a plastic and then another plastic and your leeks in a plastic? I mean, I don't buy them like that. I'm trying not to go to the supermarket if I can. But I just wondered, as a county council and other county councils, what are we all doing to try and get these large supermarkets into using everything recyclable or using loose again?
I think that's a very interesting area where we really can work with businesses that have quite a significant impact right across the county and more broadly. I'm going to ask if there are any volunteers from the team to say a little bit more about that question. Give them a little bit. Oh yes, Vanessa. Vanessa's a member of the sustainability team. She's worked very closely with Plastic Free Lincoln, so she's in a good position to help us with that particular aspect. Vanessa, if you wouldn't mind, I'll be most grateful.
Thank you, David. Yes, if you want me to pick up on the plastic-free communities bit, I can. Surfers Against Sewage are a charity based in Cornwall, and they, a few years ago now, set up a community-based campaign called Plastic Free Communities, and it invites leaders from within their local communities to come forward and want to lead a plastic-free community in their area. So Lincoln has one. There's one in Grantham and Skegness and Mablethorpe, and I think we've listed them in the paper. So the idea is that then they work within their local communities, work with businesses, work with local community groups to try and tackle single-use plastic in their areas. And its focus is very much on the independents. So it's about the people that are in those areas locally. And Surfers Against Sewage kind of say that the big chains is their area of remit. So they work more with the supermarkets and more with the big high street chain stores. But the 25-year environment plan has an element of waste in there and has increased the producer responsibility regulations. So rather than companies now being only responsible for 10% of the waste or the packaging that they generate, when the environment plan is all when the environment plan has all gone through committee stage in government, companies will be responsible for 100% of the waste that they generate or the packaging that they generate. So hopefully we'll see through there a big impact in terms of the single-use plastic and other excess packaging around, whether it's food or clothing or wherever, packets of screws and things. So hopefully we'll see some movement forward when all of that goes through.
That's really useful. Is the takeaways on board as well with that? You know, our Mackie D's that we go down the road and see bags and coffee costas and things. Are they getting on board as well?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of the public and their customers are demanding more from stores now, more from companies now. So there's that public pressure. Again, places like McDonald's should be captured through the producer responsibility regulations when they come through. In terms of the plastic-free communities, they have the opportunity to be able to work with their local takeaways, their local independent takeaways, and suggest things about whether you can come in with your own boxes and have your whatever it is you've ordered in your own Tupperware and take that away rather than having the single-use packaging to come home. So there's options and there's ways that we can get around this, but it's that multi-pronged approach that there's going to be a variety of solutions for all of the different businesses in Lincolnshire.
Okay, and at the end of the day, it is up to us as residents and the community, isn't it, by trying to enforce this and moving away from packaging, because if they only sell the loose tomatoes and not their packaged ones, then they won't have packaged ones, will they?
Yeah, exactly, and it's for us to demand it as well, isn't it, as customers everywhere we go, saying that you want an alternative option and you prioritise that one.
That's brilliant. Thank you very much for that. So we've got no further questions. So thank you for that, David. It is interesting. It's been interesting coming to the committee and seeing it. So today we have the recommendation for the exec is that the executive approves the Green Master Plan attached to Appendix A. So I propose that we move and support the recommendation to the executive set out on page 181 of the agenda and agree to pass on our comments to the executive board. Do I have a second, please?
Again, I'll second Councillor Mr. Bowker. We're on here again.
Thank you, Councillor Oxby. We will now vote. You are voting on whether you support the recommendation to the executive and agree to pass on the committee's comments. Nick Harrison will call the name of each member present in alphabetical order, and you are asked to state for, against, or abstain. Over to Nick.
Thank you, Chairman. Councillor Austin.
For.
Councillor Mrs. Bowker.
For.
Councillor Cullen.
For.
Councillor Griggs.
For.
Councillor Higgs.
For.
Councillor Oxby.
For.
Councillor Matthews.
For.
Councillor Dr. Thompson.
For.
That's carried unanimously, Chairman, of those present.
Thank you, Nick. Thank you. That is agreed. Thank you, David, and thank you to your team again. Brilliant.
Thank you very much, Chairman. Thank you, members.
Right, so moving on to item 8, which is a development fund, draining investigations and flood repairs. The item is for pre-decision scrutiny prior to consideration by the executive on the 2nd of February again, 2021. and the report will be presented by Matthew Harrison, Senior Commissioning Officer for Flood Risk. Just a reminder again, if you want to input, please type speak into the chat thread. And the actions required of the committee are that they consider the attached report and determine whether it supports the recommendations to the executive as set out in the report and agree any additional comments. So over to you, Matthew. Good morning.
Thank you, Chairman. Good morning and good morning, everybody. The Development Fund is outlined in the paper pack, and if I may, I will take that report as read, but will deal with some of the salient points, if I may, just to bring those to your attention. So we have funding to the value of £2.2 million that has been made available to us to address drainage and flooding issues in the county. And a programme of work is being developed in collaboration between the floods team and that within highways. And that work is due to be completed by March 2022. My role has been to try and help coordinate this piece of work with the floods team and our highways colleagues. But our highways colleagues have been working on this in the background and have identified many of the areas that need where works need addressing to deal with local issues. And that is identified in the programme of work that is attached as Appendix B to the paper. In delivering this programme of work, we have also developed a governance document so we can make sure there is effective reporting of the programme of work and the delivery of this between the local teams and our members. And that is the document that is attached in Appendix A to outline the process that we will take. The report highlights some of the good work that has already happened, and as you will see, there's already in the region of £340,000 worth of work being delivered to address local flood drainage issues as part of this Development Fund programme. And in addition to that, there has also been a £150,000 contribution to the excellent work that's been going on in the River Steeping catchment following the flooding events that took place around Wainfleet in June 2019. So the programme now is to progress and will intensify over the coming year as we deliver a further 34 schemes that have been identified in programme, and they will range in size and cost to address local issues, but hopefully collectively this will really deliver some local benefits to communities. So as I say, my role will be to help coordinate this programme with our highways teams. There is an element of managing expectation here in the sense of programme, because much of this will be delivered under the term highways maintenance contract by the contractors, Balfour Beatty, and they already have quite a full programme of work. So there will be an element of a bit of a balancing act within this to deliver this programme, but at the moment everything is looking promising to deliver a very full and active programme of drainage and flood risk work in the county up to March 2022. I will perhaps leave it there if that's okay. As identified, this is a report for pre-decision scrutiny, which will be taken before the executive on the 2nd of February for a decision on approval of the fund and the approach that we're taking and delegation to executive director and executive members who allow us to continue to work on this programme and deliver this by the deadline that has been set. I will stop there if I may, but more than happy to take any questions. Thank you.
A question from Councillor Mrs. Austin, Chairman.
Okay. Alison.
Thank you, Chairman. Apologies for things, but I do read my papers. Right. First of all, I'm very, very pleased to see a particular scheme, or the penultimate one in your list, which in fact is in my area and should be the recipient of one of the bigger amounts of money. So I'm very grateful for that. I hope it comes off before too long and is successful. These project teams, or the project team, when I got my head around the PM and the PS and all these other things, is it one project team collectively for the county, or will there be a series of separate project teams, please?
No, this will be one project team, which will be in the paper in the appendices there. The programme delivery board are the key officers that are situated within the highways teams, and the likes of myself in the flood team who will be coordinating this programme for delivery. The mechanism is that between us we will then report up to programme sponsors or the programme board, i.e. that made up of senior managers and executive members, to keep them abreast of what is happening with regards to schemes that have been identified in programme and any changes or developments that may come out of that. But no, this will be a collection of people forming one team to deliver against this whole programme.
Thank you. Thank you. I think that answers my question.
Do you have any other questions, Ron?
There's no further ones at the moment, Madam Chairman.
Would you like to ask anything, Councillor Osby?
No, I've nothing to add. I know there was just one in my area that's due for some drainage damage that's going to be done this coming year. So obviously pleased to see that. But that's about all from me. Thank you.
Yeah, I'd just like to say, obviously, Matthew, it's excellent. Some of these schemes have been needed for a long time, especially the one at North County Billingham. I mean, it's been an issue for many, many years driving that road. It's and again in Woodhall, I mean, they've got major problems with their drainage systems there. So it is good to see that we are actually taking in, and they are spread across the county as well. They're not just in one particular area, so that's always good. And then, so when we finish these schemes, will we be moving on to anything else, or will it be dependent on funding?
Some of that may be dependent on funding, but the hope is that if we can deliver against an effective programme here, this may set the tone for future works. So this is a little bit of a test between, you know, how we can collectively work within the teams to deliver a combined programme. So the hope is that this may set the tone for future works. Absolutely, that's what we would like to see.
Yeah, well, I hope so. I mean, it will be good to see. I think Councillor Colin Davey would like to come in.
Yeah, it's a good point, Chairman. I think that this kind of work will never end. There will always be issues coming up which will need to be addressed in the future. And I think we have to be committed as authority to make sure we support our communities and resolve issues that arise as they come up. So I will always be wanting to bid for further monies to deliver further works going forward. So I think we all recognise challenges of funding that are going to come after COVID, and that we need to get as much done as we can. So I think this is a really good programme. I thank the officers for putting it together, and thank you all for your support today for it. And I think, you know, this is a good starting point, and hopefully we can catch up with some of the stuff that's not been done over the last few years. And some of these schemes, as you rightly pointed out, will deal with long-standing problems. And that's absolutely right, and that we get on with this stuff. So thank you, Chairman.
No problem, Councillor Davey. So there's no further questions to it, Matthew, but thank you for the report. It is an excellent report, and it's very informative, and it's something that we can go back on and look at. And when we're going around our parishes, it will certainly be good news to a lot of those parishes. So the recommendations to the executive are that the executive approves the development fund, drainage investigations and flood repairs governance structure attached in Appendix A, the programme of works attached in Appendix B, delegates to the Executive Director Place, in consultation with the Executive Councillor for Highways, Transport and IT, and the Executive Councillor for Economy and Place, the authority to take decisions to proceed with individual schemes and the terms of entering into any contractual documents to give effect to the scheme. So I move that we support the recommendations to the executive as set out as page 203 of the agenda and agree to pass on our comments to the exec. And do I have a second?
I'll second again, Chairman. Oh. Unless Mike wants to.
I'm happy to second. I'm sorry, the audio didn't switch as quickly as I do.
Thank you, Councillor Thompson. Councillor Thompson has seconded that.
Yeah.
So we will now vote. You are voting on whether you support the recommendations to the exec and agree to pass on the committee's comments. Nick Harrison will call the name of each member present in alphabetical order, and you're asked to state for, against or abstain. Over to Nick.
Thank you, Chairman. Councillor Austin.
For.
Councillor Boquet.
For.
Councillor Cullen.
For.
Councillor Griggs.
For.
Councillor Haighes. Councillor Haighes. Councillor Oxby.
For.
Councillor Matthews.
For.
Councillor Thompson.
For.
That's unanimous of those present. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Nick. Thank you. That is agreed. And thank you again, Matthew. We look forward to seeing it all progress.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, members.
Thank you. Right, so moving on to item 9, county farms. This is going to be an interesting one. So this is an item and provides an update on the county farms estate in terms of current challenges, the Agricultural Act and future strategies. The report will be presented by Sarah Wells, our Business Manager, Corporate Property. Again, if you'd like to input, please speak in the chat thread and we will take questions once Sarah has presented her report. And it is only, actions are just to note and comment on the report. So over to you, Sarah, and welcome.
Thank you, Councillor. Thank you all. Good morning. Just to give you a brief update on some of the issues that we've encountered, if you like, over the last 12 months and the challenges as well and how we've dealt with them. Obviously, the agricultural sector has seen quite a few challenges over the last 12 to 18 months. And this is really just to pick up on those in turn. I will start with COVID-19. The pandemic has caused some disruption to markets initially. As I put in the report, initially it was the prime beef and chipping potato market that was hit, mainly because restaurants and fish and chip shops, etc., were closed and the effect that that had. Apart from that, it was relatively limited. The council's primary concern was obviously for the welfare of the tenants and the impact of those people that are already living in isolation in some cases. So measures were put in place with our managing agent, Savills, the LRSN, Lincolnshire Rural Support Network, and RABI, which is the Royal Agricultural Benevolent Institution, to support tenants and get as much information out to the tenants as we could for them to make contact if they were experiencing any difficulties. On top of COVID-19, or previous to that, the actual weather conditions, extreme weather conditions, created more of an issue for us. As you know, we went from a particularly wet season to a very, very dry season. And you'll see some images that I've actually included in the report of our Wainfleet estate from June of 2019. This has caused a lot more of an issue for us in terms of the yields and the cropping. So that may impact us going forward over the next 12 months as a result of what happened previously. Support as landlord, I've listed there some of the support that we actually have carried out in terms of both COVID and the weather. We also made contact the Christmas week or leading up to Christmas. Again, really pushing forward the contact details of all these different organisations. There is only so much you can do, obviously. Unfortunately, our tenants, or not unfortunately, but they are very proud and private people. And in some cases, they see contact with us as a negative stance when actually we really do want them to make contact with us, or at least, some of the organisations, if that makes them happier to do that. We have had one tenant that we've reacted to and helped him through the situation, and he's now in a better situation and able to continue his business. But we do really try to help, where we can, and really encourage tenants to come forward. In terms of the Agriculture Act 2020, having received royal assent in November, DEFRA has now produced its transition plan, and within the paper you'll see some details that I've included in terms of the basic payment scheme and how that will reduce over the next 2 or 3 years, and then going forward. The subsidies will be replaced by other grants, namely the Environmental Land Management ELM scheme, which will be linked to environment schemes for our tenants. At this moment in time, we haven't been able to actually look at how that will affect us. It's very early days, but we will do some modelling and look where that will leave us as an estate for the council. The lump sum exit scheme that's included within that is a scheme that will allow farmers who wish to exit the industry and retire to take the remaining direct payments fund and hopefully give opportunities for new farmers to come into the industry. Again, at this moment in time, we don't have a clue as to how many will take that up, but as and when we get more detail, we will be able to model that and hopefully see what the impact is on our estate. Just moving on, the future strategy. We will hope to update our future strategy in the next 12 months. We're hoping that we can undertake some meaningful consultation. So it really does depend on just how the ability we've got to do that. But we are hoping to get the strategy changed. There's a lot that's happened, particularly environmentally, and the new deals in terms of the trade deals and the Agriculture Act. So we will look to do that strategy, but it has to be meaningful and it has to be with the right engagement. In the meantime, we're liaising with Chris Miller on the Countryside Services team in terms of the 750,000 trees that the council have undertaken to plant, and we will play our part in that from the farms estate and do what we can to support. And that's just a quick run through, Chairman.
Thank you. Do we have any questions for Sarah?
None at the moment, Madam Chairman. If I just on about the sort of exit scheme for farmers that wishing to retire, do we have a list of proposed new farmers that want to come into the industry at all?
No, we don't, Councillor Roxby. We do have obviously families and successions, sons or daughters that wish to come up through the existing tenancies with their parents. That we do have probably 5 or 6 at the moment that are going through the administration side of it. We've had success with those over the last few years. I think we've had probably 5 or 6 recently, probably over the last 3 years, that have taken that route, because it does provide certainty and support, from the parents handing down, particularly financial support, because it is the financial side that can be difficult for some of them. But as it is at the moment, we are going through with some of the successions, as I say, probably half a dozen or so.
Thank you.
Okay. Right. Well, I've got a few questions, as you might expect.
No problem.
Right. Firstly, Savills. We've been increasing rents again this year. We did last year. Do we think that's really? I mean, I have spoken to Councillor Hill about it as well. We have had some quite large increases, and I understand. Yes, we have to keep up with inflation and everything else, and we have to keep up with other rents, and we are a business. I understand all that. With the bad year that we've had, with the weather and everything else, the tonnage has been astronomical. So farmers, like any other business, it's just not COVID with them; it's weather constraints. Why have we not done more to support farmers with the rent rises and actually maybe stuck to the rents of last year until we can see where we're going? Because a lot of the farmers, as we know, are struggling out there. They have had so bigger losses this year. To actually increase rents as to how we were going to do on some of our farmers is just, I just think it's criminal. And also it's like bringing young people in. If our farmers are retiring, I just think we need to do more to encourage youngsters to come into our farms. I understand that it is an issue, that a smaller farm is probably what they could afford, but that they're not going to make a living on that. So again, about bringing farmers together and making them into like a cooperative group, as we used to have years ago, and I'm talking many years ago when I first went into being a transport manager of grain industry. We used to have like the Lingrains of this world that used to have 10, 12 farmers working together and in conjunction. And that surely that's something we could look at within the county. I mean, as you know, my family have just retired from the farms after 60 years. So it has been a very sad year. But smaller farms aren't sustainable, as we know. And as I say, we know we have the agents, they have to put the rents up, but sometimes I just don't think in this day and age with COVID and everything else that's going on, we're just not giving them the support that every other thing that we've got there, and business that we've got has got the support. And then the final one is DEFRA. These DEFRA payments, the exit payments, is that going to be backdated at all or not? Is that just from next year? Because I know for a start, government was talking about that it could be taken back so that if someone had recently retired, or that it could be backdated. Do we know anything on that yet?
Shall I pick those up in line, Mr. Chairman? Is that right? So just picking up on the rents are on a 3-yearly basis, and are, as a result of discussions with individual tenants. as it is at the moment, we are not looking to increase rents for next year. So the rents are agreed a year in advance. So the decision was made, say, September of last year for the forthcoming year, and no rent increases or rent meetings or reviews will be put in place. They are done on an individual basis rather than across the board, and obviously, you know, that there are lots of, as you can imagine, lots of variances. And there are lots of the old AHA tenancies that are on very low rents, and you know, you have to bring those up to a certain level when you've got sort of neighbours that are on a decent rent. We've never been, or since I've certainly been in this role, we've never gone out full on the rents. Some of our neighbouring councils really two or 3 years ago went absolutely full on in really high rents. And lost a lot of their tenants as a result of that, and we've always been mindful of that. However, I do take your point, and as I say, certainly going forward, we don't want to lose tenants because of it. We don't want empty land, so it is definitely something that we are well aware. And as I say, the next 12 to 18 months will be difficult for some, and that liaison with the tenants is definitely what will be required. So I do take your point definitely on that one. If I can move on to the young farmers and the cooperatives that you've mentioned. That's definitely something that we want to pick up in the strategy going forward. Clearly, there's a lot of information that's coming out at the moment that you know, we need to go through with a fine-tooth comb, but that's certainly something that we will need to look at, along with other options as well, care farms, you know, things like that that are different to us. We've not done it before, and it's something that we should definitely look at. So yeah, take that definitely. DEFRA, again, I'm not sure about the backdated element of that actually, Chairman. So I will check up on that and make sure that that we're clear on those exit payments. I don't know whether Vanessa may be able to help me on that one, but I can certainly find out for you on that point and clarify. I wasn't sure that it was backdated, but we can check on that one for you.
Yeah, if we can check. Do you know anything about that, Vanessa, or not? Has it come out yet?
Nationally, we're still waiting to hear. We understand that there will be what they refer to as a base year chosen, and it would be likely that it would be a historic base year. So that's how it's, when basic payments were put in place, that's what they did. They chose a year, I think 2 years previous to the scheme, to try and give a sense of equality, I suppose, so that people hadn't taken on additional land to benefit from the payments. But it is yet to be announced what the base year will be, as I understand currently.
Okay, thank you, Vanessa. So yeah, thank you for that, Sarah. I mean, we are hopefully getting this new committee going on with Vanessa, so it would be good to have your presence on there, because you know, we don't. I'm very, very passionate, as you know, about farming. I've been for many years now, but to get young people back into our farms, which is again what they were there for years ago after the war, and I know we live in different times, you know, we have to move forward, but to have something that we could actually put back to the community and back to Lincolnshire, and put Lincolnshire on the map, really, showing other areas what can be done, with a little bit of forward thinking, isn't it? Because definitely old ways are gone. You know, we know that we can't earn a living on 200 or 300 acres. It's just not possible. We know that, especially with, well, depending on what is going to come out of as exit in the EU. I mean, we don't know, do we? This could be the year for farmers. We don't know, but
yeah, I mean, early indications are that it's actually been quite positive, you know, for us in terms of the deal that we've been looking at now. But I think you're right, Chairman, that in order to even the family members of our existing tenants, try and keep those in the business rather than, you know, them heading off doing something else. You know, that would be great. So yeah, definitely.
Thank you very much. Is there any further questions for anybody? Ron?
None at the moment, Madam Chairman.
So on that then, obviously the committee was invited to note and comment, and I propose that we move and note the report and receive a further update at a future meeting. Obviously, we are going to be moving after May. I won't be chairman, but I would hope the committee would like a further update, maybe in sort of like 5 or 6 months' time, to see how we're getting on then. And can I ask that you're all in agreement, and if anyone dissents, please indicate in the chat now. No? No dissent. So thank you, and that's agreed. Thank you very much, Sarah. Thank you for that.
Thank you.
Right, so item 10. This is Historic Places Team Strategy. Gosh, I keep getting my teeth in today, don't I? This item sets out our first draft of the Historic Places Team Strategy, and the report will be presented by Ian George, our Historic Places Manager. And again, if you'd like to input, please type speak in the chat. We'll take questions at the end of the report, and the actions that the committee have been asked of today are to comment on the content, that the Historic Places Manager be tasked with considering the committee's thoughts and ideas and incorporating them into a final draft, and that a final draft be brought to this committee on the 13th of July 2021 with a view to being implemented soon after. So over to you, Ian.
Thank you very much, Chairman. Thank you for that introduction. And good morning, everyone. Just by way of introduction, I will say a few words. Thank you. The Historic Places team moved into planning services as a result of the Place Directorate review in 2019. And this change in circumstances sparked conversations about the purpose and the focus of the team and what its priorities should be. And it was felt that encapsulating some of the discussions into a team strategy would provide us with a focus and some objectives against which the team's performance could be measured. One of the key functions of the Historic Places team is to manage information about the heritage of the county and to use that information to manage change within the historic environment by advising developers, planners, statutory undertakers, government agencies and others on the decisions that they are faced with making. As well as providing advice to our own planning colleagues, we provide advice to district councils. The earlier we know about proposals for development of significant change within the historic environment, the better the chances are of achieving a more acceptable outcome. In its national planning policy framework, the government defines what it considers to be sustainable development, and the avoidance of harm to heritage assets is one of the key indicators of that being achieved. In order to ensure we are advising the appropriate course of action, we need to bring the community along with us, of course. And we feel there is a virtuous cycle, which I've referenced in strategy. The more that people know about their local historic environment and the stories it contains, the more likely they are to value it. The more people value their local heritage, the more likely they are to care for it. If people see the local heritage is cared for, they're more likely to enjoy the benefits it brings. And if we can ensure people know about the heritage on their doorstep and the stories it can tell, we will stand a far better chance of ensuring we hand down a better legacy to future generations. In order to achieve these objectives, we need to take a more strategic approach to engaging with the businesses and communities in Lincolnshire, along with the people who visit our county to enjoy its beauty. Our aspiration is that by doing this, Lincolnshire will retain its sense of place and its distinctiveness, the features that make Lincolnshire special. We will work with partners to to ensure the towns of Lincolnshire adapt to these changing times in ways in which their character is retained and enhanced where possible. We will develop existing links to ensure the natural and historic environments are conserved together. If we get the conservation right, the historic environment will play its part in improving the lives of residents in the county, and it will attract more people to come here for holidays and leisure activities. So today I'm looking for you to sign up to our general direction of travel. I would welcome your thoughts about the areas of relevance which we have, any other areas that you feel are relevant that we may have missed or overlooked thus far. I'm particularly keen to receive the committee views on which stakeholders you feel are key for us to take along with us on this journey towards the final version of the strategy. And I look forward to bringing a version of the strategy to you later in the year. That's all I have by way of introduction, and I'd welcome any thoughts or comments from committee members.
Thank you. Do we have any questions?
Oh, we've got Councillor Ross, Chairman.
Thank you.
Thank you. There's a lot of background noise, and I don't think it's coming from me. So I'm sort of speaking against rattling cups and all sorts of things. Right. I have already spoken to Ian, obviously, and over the course of the last 18 months or so, whenever I first encountered you in the Deeping, when we had a planning meeting, a committee meeting out there. Right, now then, I think you'd say it's a highly commendable set of objectives, and I think as regards the community of Boston, which was one of the urban areas that you chose to investigate, you were probably preaching to the converted, I think, as you are aware. And as you say, this is probably to be considered as a tool for future planning as well as communities. And the more people that we can get to be aware of the value of our heritage, the better. One thing that does slightly concern me, though, is those objectives. How do we reconcile them with the decision made in recent years by Lincolnshire Council, County Council, to offload some of the county's heritage assets, please?
I think the objective of this strategy is to ensure that the heritage value of any asset is considered in all decision making, really. And so maybe we can flag up the heritage value more clearly. But I'm not aware of any heritage asset that the county council has disposed of that has received detrimental impact as a result of that disposal. I think most are being managed in an appropriate way. So I don't think disposal necessarily leads to detrimental impact, unless you've got an example to the contrary.
No, I'm just making it as a general question, whether it is actual assets like a building, and then there's obviously the controversy at the moment over the Art Gallery, but that I wasn't particularly thinking of. No, I just put that question in as I maybe to be a little bit of a catalyst to see what other people's reaction was. Okay, thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Councillor Austin.
Thank you. Is there any more speakers, Councillor Oxby?
There's no further speakers, but of course, just a quickie from me. Of course, this past year has probably decimated visitors into Lincolnshire, and obviously there's a financial impact. And of course, if it carries on into this year, it's going to be probably something similar. Do we know roughly what, say, visitor figures are down to? I suppose so. Presume they're down to probably tens of percent, are they?
I'm afraid I don't have that figure on. I don't know whether Nicole Hilton might be able to answer that, as she also covers the heritage services. As I say, I'm in planning services, and this is dealing more with the historic environment as a whole within the county rather than specific heritage attractions. So it may be for others to answer that, I'm afraid, Councillor Oxby.
I'm more than happy to help out there. So what was really interesting actually is Lincolnshire's figures in compared to the national picture, particularly over the summer. So obviously during the lockdown, the only place that was open was the castle. And that was for the free and open grounds and for people to be able to exercise. And then as the lockdown restrictions were lifted, we were able to bring other sites back online, with obviously the protections in place for COVID. What was really interesting is actually when you compared like for like figures, yes, they were down, but not spectacularly so. So the numbers for the castle and for the collection museum, they were probably 3 times the national average numbers that people were getting, and only about 20 or 30% down on what they were the previous year when there was no COVID restrictions at all. I think both those buildings lent themselves really well to being able to be COVID compliant and safe places where people felt quite comfortable to be. But also there wasn't a lot else going on, so people wanted somewhere to go and do things. And one of the really interesting ones was the Battle of Britain Memorial flight, which is at RAF Coningsby. That was oversubscribed on a daily basis. We could not keep up with demand there. It was a phenomenal response, and we simply couldn't get the amount of visitors through that we would have liked to have been able to get through, simply because that went in the complete opposite direction of what we would normally expect to see, which is quite a steady flow, and that went absolutely in the other direction. So all really, really promising for us. Tourism figures in Lincolnshire are down, undoubtedly, but for our heritage sites, it's actually been a really good news story, surprisingly so.
Good news.
I just want to ask Ian about, you've got community projects and working with local communities. Obviously, I live in Wainfleet, so Wainfleet is we've got some very historical buildings, and so has Spilsby that I represent as well. I know earlier on in a few years ago, we were going to start working with Wainfleet and Spilsby to try and collate some of their history and note down. Are we still going to do that? Because I know we haven't done it yet, have we?
Yeah.
And also working with districts as well. I know at the moment we're doing the vital and viable market towns, and actually I've just persuaded them to put Wainfleet in. Again, as tourist-wise, we don't. I mean, Wainfleet, yes, we've got some work to do, but working together with the county council and districts and everything else, we've got some fantastic things to list here, but people don't know about them. Even people living in Wainfleet don't know that history. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, as you can imagine, I fully sympathise with that. I think the first thing you were referring to, Councillor Burkett, was the historic town survey that we're undertaking at the moment. I can produce a report for the committee on that in terms of progress. Actually, would probably be quite helpful to do. In terms of both Wainfleet and Spilsby that you mentioned, we have completed the Spilsby report, and that will be going on to our website very shortly. We haven't got around to Wainfleet yet, I'm afraid, but it's still in the programme, and it will be done very soon, I promise. So that project is making progress. What was the second point to your question? Sorry.
About districts. I mean, East Lindsey, for instance, the vital and viable sustaining towns and things.
Yeah, we've worked with East Lindsey District Council on the vital and viable exercise they've been doing in the market towns and Maplethorpe so far, and it's interesting that you've persuaded them to take in Wainfleet as well, so I look forward to being involved with that. Most of the public meetings they've held, we've been present at, and we've given short presentations about the town survey that we're doing, and we're feeding the information into East Lindsey. So yes, we are engaged with that very much so.
Good, that's good, because I mean, we have Lincolnshire is just it's a beautiful county, and just people when you go away to another country and you say you come from Lincolnshire, well, where's that? Well, it's on the East Coast. Lots of people do come here. Don't get me wrong. We've got a good base of tourism, but we don't use it to enough because
absolutely. Yeah. I entirely agree. Yep.
Thank you. So somebody else wants to come in there. Who's that? I can't see who it is, Ron. Can you?
No, it just said, may I comment, please, whoever it is?
Councillor Austin again, I think.
Councillor Austin, sorry, I didn't see the name. Sorry, Alison, quickly,
Sorry, I thought my name would come up. Thank you. I put a comment up, first of all, saying encourage people to connect with the Lincolnshire Heritage Forum. As Ian knows, but if you don't know where to start, then that's a good place to start. But as Ian knows, because he has visited Boston Heritage Forum, and I think we have by far the most active Heritage Forum within the county by a long way. And Spalding, if Liz Sneath had been here, I think that they perhaps envy the enthusiasm there is, but of course we've obviously got a far bigger population and a very, very diverse heritage. But it's just really, these things start off with a series of small groups of people working on whatever their particular interest is, looking at the historic cemetery to you name it, really. Waterways, there's so much. And I think perhaps people realise that we aren't, as Boston, speaking for as Boston Heritage Forum, where I act as the sort of volunteer minute secretary, we're not connected with the borough at all. We're not connected with the district, but we are seen now as being a means of what's the word I want? Carrying out the Boston Heritage Strategy. You see, it's local people themselves that have really got. It's got to come from them. If it's member-led, if it's community-led rather than council-led, then it'll be successful.
Yeah, well, absolutely, and I hope we'll capture that within this strategy. I think it is entirely for local communities to value their local heritage and their historic environment and to make the most of it. So I fully sign up to that view, Councillor Austin. Yeah. One interesting example, when we were doing this historic town survey, as we are at the moment, we were looking at Market Raisin in the middle of last year, and fortunately it fell at the point where some of the COVID restrictions had been relaxed a little over the summer. And it turned out that a group of people was forming to look at investment in the town of Market Raisin, inward investment and development of one or two sort of problem sites, if you like. And they invited us along to the inaugural meeting, and we had a really, really interesting engagement process, looking at the history and the character of the town and how investment might seek to enhance that. And so it really does show that, knowledge of the historic environment and how it's valued can really play into investment of that kind.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, it certainly does, but it certainly just emphasises that all councillors should be involved in your local communities as well. Not doesn't matter. Yeah. I mean, I know we've all got big areas, but certainly in Wainfleet here, yes, I do. I mean, I live here, so I do a lot more in Wainfleet than I do in my other wards. But I mean, I do try and work with them all. But certainly where you live, you know, if you're active there, you can bring your community along as well, because sometimes they do need a bit of a kick to get them moving.
Absolutely, yeah.
But no, that's very interesting, Alison. And that's a very interesting report again, Ian. And
thank you very much.
To bringing it back in the summer, if I'm allowed back on here. I don't know whether I will be or not. I don't know. Oh, very stressful. Moving on then, if there's no more questions, the proposal is that we move and receive the report and the comments that have been made and take into account and incorporate them in the final draft. And we received the final draft of meeting on the 13th of July 2021. Can I ask if you're all in agreement? If anyone dissents, please indicate in the chat now. No. So thank you, that's agreed. Thank you, Ian.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So moving on then to item 11, which is the service level performance reporting against the performance framework. Oh, they get me today, don't they? 2020-2021, quarters 1 and 2. And this item sets out the performance of the Tier 2 service level performance measures for 2021, quarters 1 and 2 for economy, flooding and waste, which are within the remit of the committee. The report today will be presented by Vanessa Strange, Head of Infrastructure, Investment David Hickman, Head of Environment, and John Coates, Head of Service for Waste. And again, if you'd like to raise questions, please put them in the speak. The actions that we're being asked today are that the committee is invited to consider and comment on the details of the performance contained in the report and recommend any changes or actions to the relevant executive council. Over to you, Vanessa.
Many thanks and good morning again. So I'm very pleased to share the figures in the report with you today. And just wanted to reflect very briefly on the vast amount of work that has happened across growth really in the last 12 months. As we've heard many times at committee, there has been a huge effort around supporting businesses and training, particularly against the challenges of COVID. You'll see in terms of the numbers, things look very positive, and I think the next 2 quarters will continue though to prove challenging in one particular area, and that's around the family learning provision, and that's really around access and the time and confidence issues that learners face, and it's something we're working really hard to address around that digital provision, and giving people the opportunity to access as much learning as possible. Obviously, things have fluctuated since September in terms of what colleges, etc., have been able to offer in terms of physical contact with students. And really, as a team, we've just tried to be as responsive as we can throughout. But we are very aware of those particular challenges, particularly around digital access for all our learners. So that's something we're particularly targeting at the moment. Happy to hand over perhaps to David and then take questions, Chairman, or would you prefer us to take questions one at a time?
No, I think we listen to it all and then ask questions at the end. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Vanessa. Yeah, I'll just. I won't add very much. I don't think. Not very many measures on flooding and environment at this time of year, as we tend to report the main figures annually. What you will see, I think, is a couple of things. Firstly, just to mention that the figures for new Section 19 investigations commenced don't take account of some very recent ones where another 30 had been begun because of surface water flooding experienced on the 23rd and 24th of December. This obviously is for a previous period. But what you will see, if you look down to the graphic representation of the data on page 258, you'll see very clearly there the very significant spike of works that we experienced due to the flooding events in the second half of last year. So that just sort of demonstrates just how unusual that set of events actually was. So far a somewhat quieter year, but as I say, just before Christmas, a significant number of localised incidents, largely in South Kesteven and North Kesteven areas, from surface water flooding. Just in that period then.
Thank you, David. John, do you want to come in?
Thank you, Chair. Yes. So as the performance report shows, better performance than last year as a consequence of lockdown. More people staying at home, so the amount of recyclable material coming into the households and then coming through the waste collection streams has increased. The data is all subject to final sign-off by the EA from the Waste Data Flow portal, but a comparatively better position and an improving picture. And obviously we'll have to wait and see how things change as we go through to the year end in March. So thank you very much.
Thank you for that report. Have we got any questions, Ron?
No, none at the moment, Wendy.
Well, they've been very quiet today, aren't they?
Yeah, we've got them well behaved.
Do you want to ask anything, Councillor Oxby?
No, I've been through the report and it looks pretty good, so nothing from me at the moment.
I just want to ask about this household waste recycled. Obviously, we've not achieved that. I mean, obviously, is that to do with because so many people were at home and they just had so much rubbish, or would that have something to do with it, or is it just that people have got lazy during the summer, or is it any particular district as well? Not that you're going to name it.
We haven't gone down to that level of detail in the report. As obviously, for the recycling centres, they will cover more than one district because residents will travel to the ones that suit them at the time they want to use. But across all of them, they've seen more collected at the curbside through their curbside, their household collections. They have gone up in various peaks over the course of lockdown. Some weeks they will peak at almost 20% more collected from the households than previously for comparison. Green waste is always notorious. So that is, whilst it is collected and treated, it doesn't follow a year-to-year pattern, or so increases and decreases are not necessarily reflecting changes in behaviour or better practices by ourselves and the councils. But for the other two streams that we can look year on year for direct comparisons of residual waste and recycling waste, yes, there's been more. We did end up have people doing house clear outs, but also there's a lot more packaging coming into households. A lot of food packaging is recyclable, and residents fully engage with our recycling collections, and where material can be recycled and put in our collections, that's what they'll do. So yes, we'll have to wait and see if the winter lockdown period compares against winter normal, for want of a better word, for last year. At least we might have a full 12 months worth of comparative data from a lockdown perspective compared to a normal perspective, Chair.
I know it was a problem in the first lockdown because a lot of the recycling centres closed, didn't they? I know when certainly we had a death in the family, and trying to empty my aunt's house was absolutely an horrendous job because of, we didn't have anywhere to take it. Are they still open? Everything's still open now, though, isn't it? You can house clearances and things as well.
Yes, in the first lockdown we had the developing government guidance. So we were closed for a period of about 8 weeks, whilst we were confident that the sites could reopen safely, and they are now, and they have been doing so. And from the arrangements we put in place from July have meant that we haven't had to change anything on the sites. We're managing to protect staff, to protect residents. So staff availability is good and high, so we're not suffering there. And that's been the picture broadly across England. Fluctuations caused by the rules that have been put in place, and then also what residents' activity. So some areas, not ourselves, have seen rushes and overwhelming of sites, have had to close sites because they can't deal with the amount of material coming in. But we've managed to cope through that since July, since we reopened on our current practices and operations.
I know certainly from our perspective in East Lindsey, we're certainly having a huge problem with bottles, because obviously we still recycle, don't we, on the side of the road, and that is causing a huge issue at the moment with broken glass and people just dumping them in, just literally emptying their bags on the side of the roads and all sorts. So I think that's going to be an issue that we're going to have to look into further, certainly on East Lindsey, because it's a nightmare at the minute. What about your bottles all over the other districts? Because they collect them within the is it the black bins or is it the grey bins which we have here? Is it the recycling bins or is it the normal waste you claim glass?
It is the glass in the other districts is collected in their recycling bins. So it goes as what we call a commingled collection. So all the dry recyclables collected together, and then that goes through to the material recovery facility for sourcing into the different material streams. Yeah,
I thought it was. But no, that's it's an excellent report. And David, yes, we have had a quieter flooding year, so let's please touch wood and keep it that way. Thank you very much. We don't want to tempt fate with anything, do we? Considering we're getting on really well here.
I'll do my best.
No problem. So that's excellent. Thank you, all three of you. It is a good report, and I like to see all the ticks on it. It's doing well, considering that. The climate that we're still under at the moment is everybody's done extremely well. So the proposal for this is that we I move that we receive the report and note the performance reporters 1 and 2 and any comments that we've highlighted. So can I ask you all in agreement? If anyone dissents, please indicate in the chat now. No, that's okay then. So thank you. That's agreed. Thank you very much, all three of you. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman.
Right, moving on to item 12 then, which is Environment and Economy Scrutiny Committee Work Programme. This item enables the committee to comment on the content of the work programme for the coming year and to ensure that scrutiny activity is focused where it can be of greatest benefit. And the report is going to be presented by Tracy Johnson. Over to you, Tracy.
Thank you, Chairman. Good morning, everybody. Your next meeting is on the 23rd of February. You currently have quite a heavy agenda again with 8 items, including a pre-decision scrutiny item relating to Tattershall Household Waste Recycling Centre. I have no other changes to make to the work programme apart from today's meeting, which is the Historic Places Team Strategy, which will be added to the agenda for 13th of July. You also asked for an update on county farms in about 5-6 months. So again, I'll look to add to that to the 13th of July meeting. And following on from today's meeting with the budget and three decision reports, I'll write up the comments and ensure that they are passed on to the executive on your behalf. That's it. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Tracy. I think we just got Councillor Thompson just wants to say something. Is it about the report, Councillor Thompson?
No, it's actually just for information. No possible discussion at some stage. I've been informed about a webinar next week from the Institute of Sustainable Food at the University of Sheffield. Unfortunately, it's oversubscribed, but I have got details about the Institute which might be of interest, and I'll pass that through Nicholas in case anybody wants to pick up on that. Thank you.
That'd be interesting. Thank you. Thanks, Councillor Thompson, and thank you, Tracy, for that. So the actions were today that the committee is invited to review the work programme, which we've done, and highlight any additional scrutiny activity. And proposal that, can I ask that the work programme is approved, and if anyone dissents, please indicate in the chat now. So thank you, that is agreed. So that now concludes the business of the meeting. I've done excellent. Well, it's only 11:55. Thank you everyone for your attendance. You may now leave the meeting by using the red phone icon on the taskbar to end the call. And I thank you all for your contributions today and all the officers for their attendance. Thank you very much.